Hey guys! So I did my community engaged documentary on adolescence and mental health. Adolescents today are facing a growing mental health crisis, one shaped by social pressures, stigma, lack of access to care, and a widespread misunderstanding of their experiences. In North Carolina, data shows rising rates of depression, suicide, suicidal thoughts, and untreated mental health conditions among the youth. This documentary explores these urgent issues through research, personal interviews, social media advocacy, and a community survey. My goal during this community engaged documentary was to better understand the barriers that adolescents face and to amplify their voices while promoting solutions that are inclusive, trauma informed, and rooted in real community needs. So, during my analysis, I learned that adolescents need early, accessible mental health support to prevent long term challenges. Social support and peer connection are critical to reducing isolation and stigma. Systemic change is very, very necessary. Community based, inclusive, and culturally aware solutions must be implemented to fill service gaps. Collaborating with local organizations such as Monarch Behavioral Health in Charlotte and other local organizations can provide infrastructure and expertise to support sustainable programs. Proposed initiatives, peer support groups, and advocacy for culturally competent care target real unmet needs and can promote long term mental health equity. Um, During my analysis, I did learn that there are significant barriers to mental health care for adolescents. Individuals with mental health disorders may face systemic, financial, and social barriers to accessing care. Lack of insurance, high treatment costs, and a shortage of culturally competent services are major challenges. Um, and also, vulnerability of marginalized populations, low income individuals, Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, LGBTQ plus people, and women with trauma histories face increased risk and reduced access to care. Adolescents are especially at risk due to developmental vulnerability, stigma, and limited access to youth appropriate resources. The impact of untreated mental illness. Without adequate care, individuals may experience addiction, homelessness, family conflict, academic failure, or even job loss. I learned during this analysis that the role of community based organizations is very crucial. There are many local organizations, such as Monarch Behavioral Health, for instance, that provide comprehensive trauma informed services in Charlotte, including partnerships with local housing and crisis centers. They offer models of integrated community focused care that could be expanded or replicated. Community actions should prioritize equity, accessibility, and inclusion. Peer mentorship, non judgmental spaces, and trauma informed, culturally responsive services are key strategies in helping adolescents and mental health. So, moving on, we have statistics on adolescent mental health in North Carolina from the Bright Path Behavioral Health website. Bright Path is located in Wake Forest, North Carolina. They got this information from the North Carolina General Assembly. So the picture on the top left corner shows suicidal behaviors from 2017 to 2021. The percentage of high school students who seriously considered suicide rose from 16.2% to 22.3%, meaning nearly 1 in 5 students reported suicidal intentions. The photo on the top right shows high school students who have felt hopeless or sad, and as you can see, from 2012 it has significantly gone up. Youth mental health in North Carolina has worsened significantly with rising suicide rates, increased diagnosis of mood disorders, and nearly half of high school students reporting persistent sadness, hopelessness, or loneliness. And the bottom picture here shows high school students who have felt good about themselves, which there's an obvious decrease. It says here, diagnosis of depression or anxiety among children rose nearly 49% since 2016, while high school students reporting positive self-esteem dropped from 80% in 2011 to just 49% in 2021. The website, or the Bright Path Behavioral Health website, also speaks on how a lot of teens with depression go untreated. Nearly 2/3 of teens from ages 12 to 17 diagnosed with depression in North Carolina do not receive any form of treatment. There is a sharp rise in depressive episodes. Between 2019 and 2021, the likelihood of teens experiencing a major depressive episode increased by nearly 50% in North Carolina. Suicide-related thoughts and actions are also rising. In 2021, over 1 in 5 high school students, around 22%, reported seriously thinking about suicide in the previous year. Over 10% of North Carolina high school students attempted suicide that year, a 23% increase since 2017. There are persistent high rates of depression. From 2018 to 2019, about 15% of adolescents experienced at least one major depressive episode. There are also very low treatment rates. In 2019, less than half, about 43.3% of teens with major depression actually received treatment. They also speak on adolescent firearm deaths and how those have increased. From 2020 to 2021, firearm-related deaths among North Carolina teens rose by over 23%. So I spoke with an 11th grader who is 17 years old. Her name was Valeria, who expressed in our interview that many staff and teachers at her school seem to dismiss students' mental health concerns. She shared that there's a strong pressure to focus on academic success, often at the expense of personal well-being, which just adds to the student stress. She mentioned that she feels like the teachers care more about them doing schoolwork than they do about their mental health and how they are doing at home. She also emphasized that social media plays a major role in shaping adolescents' mental health in negative ways. Her insights underscore the importance of fostering supportive environments, both in schools and online, where young people feel safe to share their experiences openly. Moving on to the survey results, the top challenges identified from the survey that I took, 55.6% said that they feel like there is a lack of understanding or support from adults, which is a major challenge for adolescents when it comes to facing mental health struggles. About 50% pointed to stigma and discrimination as key issues. 72.2% believe stigma still surrounds adolescent mental health. Top barriers from this survey seemed to have been 88.9% said lack of knowledge about available resources prevents adolescents from seeking help. And the same 88.9% also identified that financial constraints were a major barrier. And around the same number, 88.9% say that social media affects adolescent mental health negatively. So, what does this tell us? This tells us that adolescents are facing both external barriers, such as stigma and adult misunderstanding, and systemic barriers, such as financial and informational barriers, that prevent them from receiving care. These findings reinforce the urgent need for education, access, and supportive adult involvement in mental health advocacy. On my social media platform, we are on Instagram at Mental Health Advocacy 2. I shared a variety of content focusing on raising awareness about adolescent mental health. I posted mental health tips and positive affirmations to help manage anxiety, shared statistics highlighting the growing mental health crises among adolescents and in North Carolina, and created engaging stories explaining why people should care about this issue. This included messages on the importance of early intervention, suicide prevention, and breaking the stigma around mental health disorders. The platform supported my efforts by allowing me to reach a broader audience, foster conversations, and advocate for adolescents whose struggle often goes unseen. Through visual content and storytelling, I was able to promote empathy, understanding, and the need for accessible mental health resources. So let's talk about the advocacy plan. Starting off strong, we have create a peer support group, develop a safe, inclusive space for students to share their experiences, reduce the stigma surrounding mental health, and build coping skills through peer connection. We also have partner with local organizations. We could collaborate with local organizations such as Monarch or Bright Path Behavioral Health and other mental health providers to bring resources and professional support to our youth. Promote early intervention. We want to advocate for mental health education and screenings in schools K through 12 to identify issues early and prevent long-term struggles. Encourage trauma-informed, culturally competent care. We want to work with counseling centers and providers to ensure services meet the needs of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, LGBTQ plus community, and other marginalized youth. For social media, we want to use it as a way to raise awareness and empowerment. We plan to continue sharing mental health tips, affirmations, statistics, and advocacy messages to reach youth and allies online. And lastly, we have improve access to affordable care. I plan to advocate for sliding scale fees, free school based mental health services, and increased funding for low income youth programs to reduce financial barriers to mental health care. Through this community engaged project, I learned how deeply layered and urgent the adolescent mental health crisis is in our community, and not only our community, but just everywhere across the US. My survey results, interviews, and research revealed that social media, while helpful for awareness, can negatively affect adolescent self esteem, mental health, and even peer pressure. I also learned that lack of access to care prevents many teens from getting the help that they need. And this can be for many reasons, like financial barriers, limited knowledge of resources, and or even long wait times. Adults often underestimate or dismiss adolescent mental health concerns, which adds to teens feeling which adds to teens feelings of isolation, and it can discourage them from even seeking the help that they feel they need. And stigma is still a huge barrier, which makes it hard for adolescents to speak up or feel safe asking for help. Using social media as an advocacy tool really showed me the power of storytelling and education in reducing stigma and connecting with youth. Overall, this whole experience strengthened my belief that community based, trauma informed, and accessible care must be prioritized, and that young voices should be heard and validated in all efforts moving forward. Since I learned that a lot of adults often dismiss adolescents when they're sharing their feelings or speaking up about mental health concerns, I think it's very important to advocate for adolescents whose voice seems to be often unheard.